Hello everyone again. There are many different types of wax used to make candles. These include beeswax, soy, palm, rapeseed, coconut and paraffin. They all have different properties and pros and cons. Beeswax is considered by many as being the healthiest candle as it's a natural product. These candles burn very cleanly and have a high melt point, which means they burn slowly. However, it takes a lot of busy bees to provide the wax, causing them to be quite expensive. Soy wax is also considered to be healthy to burn. However, soy production has and is contributing to deforestation in tropical countries and the associated environmental problems this brings. The most popular by far is paraffin wax, which is a derivative of the petroleum industry. It's cheap to produce and its properties enable it to be made into different types of candles. It also has a good throw, giving off a consistent scent over a prolonged period of time. Paraffin candles are inexpensive and readily available. They're the ones most often used in churches, and with the Church Candle Challenge in the initial stage, we'll be dealing mainly with odorless paraffin wax candles and paraffin blends. The cons associated with paraffin wax is that it isn't considered as being as healthy to use as other waxes. As we know, there are three key aspects of life that are vital for our survival. We need to eat food, we need to drink fluids, and we need to breathe air. Ingredients in food are listed. For example, in this bread, which is considered to be a healthy loaf, there are 20 of them. The fact that you only need 4 or 5 to make delicious bread, and the vast majority in this are preservatives, additives and processed sugars, like much of the food we eat nowadays, is one of the reasons I, and many like me, have the proportions of a small rhinoceros. In my case, thank you Slimming World, I used to have the proportions of a medium-sized rhinoceros. In this drink, there are 13.5 teaspoons of processed sugar. Again, the ingredients are listed, and so at least I'm aware of the reason I was pre-diabetic with the proportions of a medium-sized rhinoceros. Now let's talk about the air we breathe. When I started upcycling candles, naturally I needed to know what they were made of, but it wasn't as easy as you might think to find out. Take this box, for example, in which some church candles were delivered. The label simply states, altar candles with beeswax. The first question this raised was, what contains beeswax? It seems to me that not to be given any information about what the candle is predominantly made of is a bit like buying a car and being given no information as to what engine it has. The second question was, how much beeswax? 1%? 99%? On contacting the company, I was told that the candles contain, quote, up to 5% beeswax. The company has chosen not to reply to my further inquiries, asking what grade of paraffin was in their candles and what benefit was there in adding a minute amount of beeswax. Whereas I appreciate that adding different types of waxes can help a candle to burn more effectively and efficiently, I very much doubt if adding, say, 1% of beeswax would have much effect on the way the candle performs. You have to wonder if we are supposed to consider it as being a healthier candle. Giving limited information isn't unusual, and if you look at labels on candles you've bought, you'll find that what they're made from often isn't on the label. In fact, it's not a requirement to list the type of wax used, as all candle waxes are considered as being non-hazardous. In recent times, there has been a significant rise in the number of fragrance candles being used, and the fragrances are often made from chemicals. Apparently, only candles containing potentially hazardous ingredients must be labelled, and you'll find that those containing essential oils and fragrance oils have a label with details of what these are. For example, with the aid of a magnifying glass, I was able to find out that this candle called Fresh Linen and Lace contains isoeugenyl hydroxymethyl pentyl cyclohexane carboxyaldehyde coumarin hexahydrotetramethyl methanoazoline ethan linalool. Then, perhaps not surprisingly, it states, may produce an allergic reaction. Considering that something like 8% of a fragrance candle's volume is oils, once again it seems odd that we don't know what constitutes the other 92%. Not that I'm cynical, of course, about the amount and quality of stuff flooding into our country. However, I do feel that every ingredient, including the grade of paraffin wax, its additives and melting point, the percentage of each particular wax in blended candles, and their oils, if they have any, should be listed. We need more transparency. It's not good enough to state that a candle, which we presume is predominantly made of paraffin, is promoted as with beeswax or with soy, or that we are told that they contain up to 5% beeswax. The type of wick and its size should also be included on all packaging, and if this were to happen, upcycling would be easier, as this information would make it practicable to combine both small pieces of wax that are scented or unscented with the specific wick they require. No testing would be needed to produce a candle that is both efficient and safe, and huge amounts of wax like this could easily be upcycled and not discarded. As things stand, it's not really viable to test small amounts of fragrance wax and find out which wick will perform safely and efficiently with it. I'd like to think that in the not too distant future, laws are passed that, as with the food we eat and the beverages we drink, we're made more aware of what we're breathing in, and that government agencies are stringently testing these products. New legislation would definitely help the environment and potentially help the nation's health. In the meantime, on those dark, dank, dreary, cold, wet, windy nights of autumn, winter, spring, and summer, when you light candles, remember to regularly trim the wick. Ventilation is a good thing, and if you feel any tightness in your chest or feel a headache coming on, extinguishing the candle may help. A really good tip when you burn a container candle, by the way, is to make sure that the wax is melted across its entire width before you extinguish it. Candle makers talk about candle memory, and if you only burn the candle partway across its width, when you light it again, it will only burn to that point and then burn downwards. This is another reason that candles tunnel, resulting in huge wastage of wax at a cost to the consumer and the environment.